Hey guys, I think I figured it out. All those nights of kids complaining about dinner? Not anymore. Solution right here.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. You know those dino nuggets aren't going to cook themselves.
So I asked AI to make a recipe using only what I had in my kitchen. Don't worry about throwing anything out anymore, baby. Just gonna use all those ingredients in the refrigerator.
Did a basket of ingredients magically appear?
You mean like Chopped? Yes, it did actually feel that way. Cranberry sauce, winter sausage, peanut butter, sriracha, old jelly beans, and some Fiber One.
That's a Chopped episode. No one wins.
Look, man, AI is really smart. I am not worried.
I don't think AI does what you think it actually does.
Your kids don't even eat what you cook on a regular basis.
Well, if AI can do it, it must be good, right?
Might want to order some takeout.
Look, man, AI is really smart. I'm not worried. I think the kids are going to eat it. It's going to figure it all out.
You keep saying AI. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Your kids don't even eat what you cook on a regular basis.
Well, if AI can do it, it must be good. Right? Right?
Might want to order some takeout.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you. There are no rules in this house. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
I'm Michael Hyde.
I'm Sarah D.
And I'm Mike Levine.
All right. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Toodly-doo, Sarah D. Toodly-doo.
What's going down?
So the three best friends.
That anybody can have.
Well, this week, Hey the Parents, it's going to be more than the three best friends. We're having our buddy Liam come on the show. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. So welcome back. We're so glad that you guys are here to hang out with us as we figure out this parenting thing on season 4 of Hey the Parents. Whether you're in the car, folding laundry, cooking dinner, going on Gemini or ChatGPT to figure out your dinner recipes, getting organized or on the go. We know that you have a lot of choice for podcasts out there. So thank you for listening to ours. And of course, we'd like to send a big welcome to our new moms and dads listening and a big hearty hello and welcome back to the returning listeners who are, of course, here to put up with us for yet another episode. And if this is your first chance joining us in this podcast, Hey the Parents, it is a chance for a few of us parents who decided that we need to join our efforts together and try to get through this thing of raising kids that we call a survival course. We pick a different theme, we pick a different topic each week. We discuss it from the standpoint of when we were younger, growing up with our own parents, and then we shift on over to now as adults, where we certainly did not get a handbook with our own kids. We talk about what we go through, we share some of our experiences, we learn from each other, and every week we feel a little bit better because every week, And every week we feel a little bit better because we have each other and we have all of you. So we'll hear from you guys for our show. This is kind of the theme of the episode for this week. The question this week is, how have you kind of introduced an AI into your life, and what do you think works well and what doesn't? So if you'd like to answer this question, have comments or questions for the show, you can get in touch with us in one of 3 ways. 1, you can leave a message on the Hey the Parents voicemail line. 2, you can email the show. Or 3, you can follow us on social media. All that information is baked into the show notes. Why not pause the episode right now and all right, so we're back now. All right, so without further ado, we're going to jump right into the main part of the podcast, and that entails the topic of the week. Sarah D, what are we talking about today?
All right, for this episode, we are chatting about AI, the good, the bad, the ugly, how to keep our children safe while they're navigating this amazing technology, and how to also keep them to continue being lifelong learners and curious.
And not get arrested for plagiarism. So, aye, Captain. So this episode is going to be an interesting one. We actually did an interview with our good friend Liam, who's a friend of the show. We actually do a podcast together, Mike and I, for campaign. And we know Liam is really into the AI thing. And we thought, why not get ourselves somebody that has some good background, could speak about some about AI stuff in terms of education, how people are using it now, and maybe a little bit about some of the positive things, which you don't hear really a lot about for for students and kids that are maybe in middle school and high school, because in this episode, it would be ridiculous for us to just like grab the pitchforks and start yelling about how AI is bad without actually taking a full scope of it and thinking about maybe some of the good ramifications as well. We do use it for various reasons in our own daily lives. We'll talk about that in the show. But I think that this will be a good chance for you at home for kind of, taking a step back and maybe thinking about where we are. I mean, look, this is like what could feasibly be the next iteration of big technology. We had the iPhone that changed everything. And I guess before that, it must have been slicing bread. And now here we are with something that maybe is just another thing that maybe it changes. It looks a little bit different. It's called something different, but seems like the next iteration where things are and just kind of how things have changed. But you could either kind of, ditch out in life and go find yourself a nice cabin in the middle of the woods and live off the land. Or you can say to yourselves, this is where we are and we kind of have to acknowledge it and get into the flow of things and figure out where it fits into our lives. And with that, my friends, so we're going to shift that over now. We're going to get to the interview. I hope you guys enjoy the time we spent with Liam. We'll look at it from all sides and, you'll make up your own mind kind of where things are. And we also are going to try to have a little bit of a conversation with some of the changes in AI and also how, I guess as parents, we could kind of think about how to moderate, how to keep an eye on things. And, look, it's like anything else, right? We talked about cell phones and things like that, having a place where all the phones go at night, having a good sense of what your kids are doing with screen time. It's another thing. But without further ado, why don't we move along to the next part of the podcast? I want to get to the interview. And when we are done, we will shift back over to our last part of our podcast, which will be, of course, Parenting Unplugged. And who knows, maybe we'll even have Liam tell us about his one thing that he's doing, which I have the feeling could be similar to mine. All right, we'll see you on the other side. All right, so here we are. Hey, Liam, welcome to the show.
No, this is Patrick.
All right, so we got Sarah, Mike Levine, we got Liam here.
Sorry, had to make a canon.
That's amazing. And the fact that the four of us.
What's up, buddy?
It's a wild thing. When we do our podcast, we record online at our own houses, and we use a web service that we use to kind of make sure we record everything. And there's three of us, and there's always three boxes. And today, Liam fills the fourth box, and it's so nice, just like Mike Rollup did the other episode. So this is nice. So we have four of us. It's nice and evenly mixed up, and
you feel the crevices of the heart, Liam.
I know, and
or boxes and crevices that fill us up.
I was going to ask Liam if he was a ventricle or an aorta, but let's get into this piece. That was the geekiest thing we've said in a long time. Maybe not. I don't know. As of course, we made a Princess Bride reference in the intro. Hope you enjoyed that. All right, so we're going to jump into this today. Liam, thank you for joining us. This episode, our plan is, of course, to, we try to talk about topics sometimes that aren't always like the easiest ones to talk about. There's some fear behind them. There's a lot of opinions, but we're going to get away from that. And we're going to try to kind of have a balanced discussion of the good and the bad. I, of course, I'm glad that all of us are here because, I do like AI for many reasons. So I have to keep an open mind and I'm thinking about why some things maybe aren't so good. And maybe we'll talk about some tools and things that could be positive. So we're glad that you're here with us today.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. First, a disclaimer. While I'm by no means an expert, I'm definitely someone as a social studies teacher in a high school that has to, encounter students potentially using AI, but I'm also someone who uses AI myself. I've done a collegial circle with AI in our school, and I try to keep somewhat up to date about the ongoings with AI. So just that first disclaimer. And actually, before I talk more about it, I feel like, because you mentioned that you all might have some fears or concerns regarding AI, and I feel like a good place to start is understanding what AI is. So can I actually ask you all, what do you think AI is and how it works? Or the typical one. We'll stick with the text-based ones. I think that will probably be a good place to start.
This is a good one. I like this. All right.
You want me to pick that one up? Sarah, you want to get that one? Or Mike? Who's going to hit it? Who's going to hit it first?
Get it.
All right. Listen, if you just say the word cloud and start applauding for yourself, that's not okay. All right, Levine, what do you got?
Well, all right. So to me, AI is pretty much a machine where you ask it a question. It's like a genie in a bottle, right? Like, hey, how do I do this, or how do I solve this problem? And it gives you the answer. So I think, to me, AI, it can be scary as a parent, because I want my kids to not learn a sense of helplessness from it. And I think that's kind of my fear, is that, they could just be like, oh, why do I need to answer this? And why do I need to answer that? It's just like their sense of creativity may die. And to me, AI is kind of scary, because I struggle, I guess, with trying to find what the balance is of having, because it's not going away. AI is like next generation stuff. Like, this is like Star Trek stuff, right? This is like Iron Man stuff, where you have Jeeves talking to you and
two more. Go ahead, two more. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm such a nerd, guys. I'm such a nerd.
No, it's good. Are you going to say the Borg? I hope you do.
Yes, yes. No. So anyway, and like droids, like from Star Wars, with the AIs in it, but it's just it's scary, because I want my kid to know, or kids, I should say, to know that you to be creative and still think on your own, as well as utilize AI for the benefits that it could bring.
So thanks. So I think AI. What I think of AI is, it's a very tired girl. She's in her room and she's like, why is she asking another question?
Oh, this is like a skit. Like, AI is like,
Yes.
all right, next caller. Oh, Jesus.
She's like, oh, Lord, Sarah again.
The middle-aged housewife from New York. Well, okay, what do you got?
But besides being on call every 5 seconds, I think AI has some great, like, good things and bad things. What I think of it is, it's a great tool to like ask a question, but then also too, I know that it is drawing information from multiple places, and that information may or may not be accurate. And as a parent, the scary thing about it is that if my children are asking it questions, what kind of weird answers will I give it? And then, they're so impressionable at this age, like from 12 to even 16, to like their brains fully developed, they're getting these ideas. And like, yes, they can get it from social media, but I think there's something to be said, like when you're like plugging away to AI, it feels and it comes across very authoritative. So like it knows these things. I know AI could be great, like a great tool that, we've asked it to help with make study guides and maybe like some sentence starters. But I do worry for my kids as they get older, using it as a crutch though, to be like, hey, just write me this essay as a 6-year-old in AP class, please, and thank you.
Kind of like a muscle that you like let fatigue if you don't use it.
Correct. So that's my only fear, kind of like Levine was saying.
Good
Like,
analogy.
it's like losing that creativity and like that the critical thinking skills that I want them to develop on their own first.
Well, I think like ultimately, like for me, I like a lot of the stuff that Sarah and Mike are saying, because those are really good concerns that I think are valid. And it's information, right? Like it's getting information, pulling from sources and giving information. And I think that the thing that Sarah brought up makes me think about how impressionable kids really can be, because of, like how many times am I, my kids' friends or my kids are like, oh, I heard it on TikTok. I'm like, guys, I can make a video on TikTok. I can be completely wrong. It doesn't make me an expert. So like this idea that information comes along and it's grouped with an emotional component where it looks like you're talking to someone with a personality. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that it is information. It is crowdsourced information, and it's only as good as where it's coming from. But then there's the emotional component where you think you're getting like a person that you're talking to. And while it can be very fun to talk to that emotional component, it still is, it's computers. It's not a person. And for me, I think that as long as we kind of remind ourselves of that, that's kind of a big piece of it. But the ability to source incredible amounts of information, not knowing how it works at times, could be a little scary, but the idea that it could source information from so different places and kind of like organize it and put it into a way that could be presented quickly and accessibly is incredible. And I think that for people that have experienced what it's like to be in the dark, and then now having this tool, not as long as you don't forget not having it and being able to use it, puts it in a different perspective, I think, than people that are newly experiencing this without really having that comprehension of what it was like before this was accessible. But yeah, I guess for me, Liam, your simple question got a very long response. But I think for me, it's that it's really information that's masked along with an emotional side, like a personality.
Yeah, so just to kind of hit upon all of your responses, so like I know one thing Levine brought up was the idea like this is like the future. This is like talking to Jarvis and Iron Man, and the truth is we're not quite there yet. That's closer to what's called the artificial general intelligence, an AGI, and we're still very far away from that, where we have kind of like an actual thinking partner, and right now, although there's still probably research being done on it, all of the AI stuff is really being supported on this language learning model, LLM side. And the way these LLMs work is that they use something called tokens. And this really helps dispel the idea that these are thinking beings that really understand what it's saying and what you're saying. Because all the AI does is if you put in a prompt, it will pull up, okay, based on your question, what's the most likely next word out of my available what's called tokens. So, for example, let's say one token could be the word gin, right? And if I ask the question, what type of liquor do we use in a martini, the AI would say, oh, based on all of my training data, I can see like that word martini goes with the word gin, so I'm going to pull the token gin. Right? But the word gin means nothing to it, because, for example, you can say like, oh, that dog was, and then it might say like, oh, based on my training data, I think the next token should be gin, and then the next token should be norm, and the next token should be us, ginormous, right? So all of these things are just broken down into little either words or parts of words that it says, oh, I predict this is the next most likely thing that would satisfy the question of the prompt I'm being given. And the reason why you hear things like prompt engineering, like being more specific and really narrowing what you're asking, is because that'll give you a more narrow set of data to be trained on, as well as a different structural output. Because if you say, give me a bulleted list or give me a one paragraph summary, it's also trained on how to output it in those formats based on, in addition to those predictions. So the more specific you are with your prompts, the better chance you're going to kind of get the tokens, I guess you're looking for. So that's the way AI works. So it's not thinking, it doesn't understand you. It just sounds like it understands you because it's trained on data made by humans. So it sounds in that way like a human just because it's just recalling their words.
Wow, I did not know that, dude. That is actually pretty
I'm glad I
enlightening.
could help.
Yeah, man.
And who knows what's going to happen? Like, obviously there are other companies, but like OpenAI, they may not be around for the long term. They're I don't know if you guys have heard this, like the AI bubble might burst. Like, they're running out of money. OpenAI, ChatGPT is going to be starting to put ads in the free version because like they're literally running out of money. So I don't know if a company like Google will be, Google may stay around with more lasting, with more finances to kind of back their AI engines, but there's kind of this bubble here where everyone's invested and they're not really finding great ways to get the return on investment yet.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Who knew?
So,
just to speak to what you're saying, though, like, I didn't know that it runs on these tokens that kind of match words pretty much to kind of generate content of whatever you ask. So, I mean, that's really crazy, but it feels like you are talking to somebody, which is even crazier. Yeah. Like,
and that's part of the.
I mean,
and that's
like
why every model feels different, because they train it on a different data to make it have that different personality feel with each iteration. Yeah. So,
like, I don't know if you've had even the. If you tried the chat, I'm sure you have the ChatGPT version where you could talk to it and it talks back. I think it comes with like the paid kind of subscription for it.
Yes, I use that one actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like literally having Jarvis in your head, like Iron Man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because I have a long commute to work, so sometimes when I need to get kind of like either get something written down or maybe like a rubric made or an idea down for a lesson, I'll actually turn on that voice mode while I'm driving and just kind of like have it record all my thoughts and organize it that way. When I get to work, it's already a ready-made handout or whatever it is, or I can copy and paste and start modifying it. So yeah, it's absolutely useful as a tool and an assistant in that way. I agree.
So like what, maybe that lends itself to kind of maybe another thought is, like what do you think people frequently think AI is that it's not? I guess maybe you spoke about this idea of information or conversational stuff, but you know, that word is being used everywhere. It's crazy right now.
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot of people overestimate what AI is in the sense that it is kind of like a person or is more all-knowing. But the reason why it can fall into false information or hallucinations is because once it finds that one token that it thinks it's next, and it's the wrong thing in the order, like let's say it's like, oh, World War I was caused by elephants, and for some reason from elephants it goes into all these other like words that make no sense with the prompt. That's an exaggeration for an example, but that's why it can fall in these rabbit holes where it thinks it's authoritative and right because it's saying, no, these are the tokens I've pulled, right? So on the back end, they now have better instructions where you can correct it and make it like think harder. Essentially, you can make it take more time. You can ask it to cite its sources now, and like get the links to verify the information yourself.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's definitely a pro tip as well if you ever need to like verify something. But yeah, I think people overestimate what it's actually doing. I would ideally like to see this as a tool in the future as like an assistant, a time saver. But I am, to echo some of your concerns, worried about children losing kind of like that critical thinking element and like the building the skills element from school. Because I feel like if kids over rely on this in school right now, they're going to lose that for later on and have to rely on this as a crutch rather than a useful tool to maximize their potential, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially like if you, I don't know who said it before. I think Mike may have said it. Like, if you have a generation that doesn't know anything, right? Like you have these generations that are fresh and new, blank slates coming up into, you know, and they're learning how to use AI. They're not first, or they're learning how to use devices and computers and technology first rather than the components to think critically first, you know? So it's like, I feel like that gap is going to be there eventually, you know?
It's weird. It's almost like it feels so strange because it feels like all of these times that like we've heard like our parents or like I just randomly thought of MTV when it launched, and then you know the first song they played on MTV was "Video Killed the Radio Star," and it's just the idea of like what is it more? And I think I know the answer to this because I think we all have genuine concerns. The thing is, are we just being old fashioned and not willing to embrace what's new? Or do we have general concerns that there is potentially a problem? And I think that the things that we're all thinking about, I can't imagine our parents felt differently in their current circumstances, but this time around, this really feels like we're kind of like dancing with fire a little bit if we don't instill the right lessons with our kids.
While I definitely feel like there are like valid arguments on both sides, I think this is like definitely a different case from like, I was looking at a photo the other day of like, you know, teachers protesting, like literally out in front of a school with signs protesting the use of like portable calculators, like pocket calculators.
Oh, wow.
And just to ask you all a question, do you feel like having a calculator in school hindered your math skills growth?
No.
I don't
Overall?
think so. No,
it was almost like you had like
yeah.
a warming up period though, right? Like you wouldn't get a calculator
You
when
still have to
you
know
were in
your
elementary
timetables.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So you
almost
got
like you had
algebra.
to like do the muscle work first before you got.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the other side, like when we think about this, because this tool can do so many more things in that process and like research, critical thinking, writing, preparing, planning. I think there is more of a case to say, no, this should be a concern, not to front load this tool into our students' pockets, because again, if they're just relying on this rather than knowing how to do it themselves, then it's going to become a crutch. I feel like when I use the tool, kind of knowing already what I want and what my process is, I can really finesse AI to kind of give me what I want in a way, because I know what my end goal should be. Whereas if kids aren't learning, the proper steps to complete a task in a certain way, they're going to be shortchanging themselves in the future. And even now in like computer sciences, they say like some of the best candidates are those who have like the coding or the programming know-how, but can leverage AI on top of that, not rely on AI to do all of the programming and coding for them.
It's kind of like what Levine was talking about before, but he left out one reference was Spider-Man. And one of the things that there was this one scene, and I just feel like the stuff we've been talking about just screams at me, was that one part where Tony Stark took away the suit, and Peter Parker was like, the new movies, he was like, kind of getting upset about wanting the suit back and needing the suit. And there was that moment where like Tony Stark was like, you see, that's a problem. If you say you need the suit, then you shouldn't have the suit. And that was kind of like a big opening moment of like, you're not really understanding the complexity of what it means to have this responsibility,
this power.
And I know that was Spider-Man, and it's great, but in this regard it does feel a little bit like that, because the stuff that we've been talking about, it is that like sort of like grace period of like learning to do calculations and then getting the calculator, or learning to make critical analysis and then giving a tool to help as like almost like a research assistant rather than someone doing the work for you, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. You know what it made me think of with the calculator, like being in math class and the teacher always saying the calculator is only as good as like the user.
Yeah.
So, like if you type in the wrong numbers, the wrong decimal, you're going to get the wrong answer, even though you use the calculator.
Get the wrong answer much faster, right?
Right.
And that's you might going to explain. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you have to like learn, as like, as we're all excited, like in 5th grade, using the calculators. That's when it also is like, wait a second, does that make sense? Can you have 3.5 pizzas? Like, no, you can only buy 3 pizzas or something like that. So that's where you have to use your like.
Watch me.
Right. But you have to like use your like
logic and reasoning
thinking skills there. Yeah, your reasoning. Yeah. And I think what William's saying is that like, yes, this is a great tool that you can learn to finesse it if you know what your end goal is. And I think what it feels like is like kids have to learn how to use the tool, and then to also say, does this sound accurate? Is this what I really want? Does this fit what I need?
See, I find it difficult because, as parents, you may have your ideas about AI and how to teach AI to your kids, right? And then your kids wind up going off to school, and then they have, 10 friends who are like, oh, don't, peer pressure. Don't worry about that. Just throw it in AI and do it. You know what I mean? So that we could go play, baseball or something, I don't know, or play video games or Fortnite or something, I don't know. But I guess that's what that's what I'm having trouble with, is like there's another thing new that is being presented to the world, to our children, and we haven't taken the time to analyze it and kind of see how it's going to what ripple effects it's going to bring. And it gets frustrating, especially raising kids. Like, you're trying to teach them one way, and then, the world is showing them another way, and it's like, which path will you choose? The dark side or the light side?
I knew it. This is a big setup. Listen, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Well done.
So. I think, with that, like, Levine's kind of touching on, like, some fears that I think as parents we've kind of heard. Like, maybe it's, like, propaganda on the news or something like that, but, like, I think we've talked about, like, where AI can, like, make it sound like someone's voice, or it could doctor images or something like that. Like, so Liam, like, what are your as a parent, like, for us parents, what's like some advice or like things AI could possibly do that we should watch out for, perhaps?
In terms of things to watch out for, first in regards to textual information, This comes back to even before there was AI, like, oh, was this, written by a person? Do they have their sources cited? Does it look like it's, coming from a reliable place? Is this like a well-known organization type of deal? So some of those basic literacy components that we still use are just as applicable in the age of, textual AI. When it comes to images and video, that's a lot more difficult. I've seen adults bamboozled by like things on like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, from generative AI videos. And I saw in the show notes like the benchmark that we've had over the years is Will Smith eating pasta.
Yes.
Yes.
I was hoping we would have gotten to that because that's important stuff right there.
And this is something that scares me because when you have anyone capable of creating any sort of image or video that can fine-tune it, and this technology is only going to grow, I think that is something to be really concerned about. Right now, there are some things you can have like people look out for in images, like really look at the background. Do the shapes make sense? Is the text clear and legible? Do people have 5 fingers versus like 8 fingers, or like a limb growing out of their shoulder?
I knew this was going to come back to Princess Bride. I just knew it if we just gave it long.
It's really looking at those details, and then also corroborating. Oh, I saw this video happen for something in the news. Can I see that same video from a different angle, from a different person? Can I cross the videos and see the same people like recording each other?
That's
right.
Smart.
So it's definitely a tough area because you sometimes don't know what's real, what's not real until things are verified. I will say images and videos do have a little bit more of an easier time telling if they're AI in the way that they're generated, because they might have a built-in thing to like the output that says, oh, this is like watermarked or tagged as AI somewhere in the code. And so in that way, that could be something we use, as long as other companies that are allowing us to use these tools have those features implemented.
Like willing to put a watermark in or something that in some way.
Yeah. Like Gemini, when you make images, has a watermark in them always. For example, I don't think ChatGPT definitely has one right now. No, I don't think so. But there might be other ways to tell that it's AI generated in the actual, it like the data, I guess you could say, the ones and zeros, something along those lines. Text is more difficult in that sense because, anyone could retype text into their own document, right? And this is why also in school as a teacher, or us as teachers, why catching someone writing using AI is a little more difficult. The best benchmark for us as teachers is that I feel like we can use ourselves almost as like that human lie detector component. Like we should get writing samples from the students early on, handwritten in the classroom. That way when they do turn things in later on, whether it's typed or even they handwrite it and they copy it from ChatGPT, we can tell like those structural or language differences that the students are using. But
so when a kid doesn't write, like they hand something in, and then later in the year when they start to use like furthermore and things like that in their writing, and you're like, this is not
unless it's natural growth. It could be natural growth, but
right. But I mean,
there could also be very common phrases that the AI uses. Like AI used to use the word underscore all the time. They might even still use the word underscore all the time.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Is there anything out there that can detect if your work was done by AI?
There is no 100% foolproof tool that can detect if something was written by AI. You can upload the Declaration of Independence into an AI checker, and it'll come back as like more than 50% AI written. This is because AI is trained on the real data, so it thinks it's like, oh, this is AI because it was trained on this data. So this is also a problem like in colleges where like professors have these arbitrary things like, oh, if I suspect you've written with AI, you're automatically going to get a 0. Whereas if a student really did the work and didn't write with AI, but they're suspected of it, there's no recourse they can take.
Wow.
Other than potentially showing their document history and them typing it out, But even then, a kid could just be copying it from one page to the other and typing it out. So
do you struggle?
This is not a guide to cheat. This is don't do this.
No, so basically what you're telling me is there's no way I could catch my son or my daughter, by using something out there, to detect their AI.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, the best way. I mean, the best way I've seen so far, just as a as a teacher is literally just kind of getting to know the students, getting to know their writing style, and then like cross-referencing that if I ever feel like it's not their own work.
Right. I think as parents, like, you kind of know what your child's capable of, you know?
Yeah.
Even though that might be a hard pill to swallow as a parent, getting that call from a teacher saying that your child has, you know, might got a little extra help from AI, you know, and you have to kind of, I think, come to terms with that. I think that's a hard call, you know?
Before we switch out to like talking about some of the positive stuff, I am curious though, you know, and obviously you're not the speaker of all teachers and things, just things you kind of find in your own classroom. Do you find like in general, like, you know, I guess you could look at it from two perspectives. Like, so in some ways you could say like the kids are going to mess up. You kind of have to almost like let them, and they have to find their way. Or do you have to, or like part of, maybe the other part of you wants to be like constantly policing. It must be a hard thing, you know, to kind of figure out which you know, what angle that you always have to be on.
I think the philosophy here is probably pretty similar to the way we all probably maybe grade homework. Is like, not all homeworks is like you're fact checking everything. Sometimes it's like a completion homework, and those ones you aren't fact checking. But like maybe the assignments are like, you are really working on a thesis statement with a body paragraph. Like those you might want to double check to make sure the kids are doing right by themselves, right? And then if the kids are constantly doing that, and then all of a sudden they're taking a test where they for sure don't have access to ChatGPT or whatever, the proof will be in the pudding, right? Their actual assessments are gonna show if they've, you know, been doing the work or if they haven't. Obviously, people have bad testing days, but I think, you know, the you know, the truth will be self-evident in that regard. And I think we as teachers, to not, you know, overburden ourselves, we have to kind of like really choose the times we want to do like that really in-depth double check versus like, oh, I'm gonna just check to see if they did it type of thing, you know?
Right.
I feel it sounds exhausting, honestly. I mean, this idea that like, you know, it's like one more layer of things that you have to kind of be aware of, you know?
Yeah. And the other thing to consider is, you know, other forms of assessment, like, you know, even if you've written a report or a presentation, now you have to like verbally defend it and explain it and be able to explain the words that you chose to write. You know, that's another good way to check. Can I do a sound check here? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah,
Sorry, you all first.
Yeah.
Right?
But it also feels like I feel like, you know, having conversations with your kid and just talking about these things, I feel like as a parent, like, you know, it's a very simple conversation of like, you know, how embarrassed are you going to be if that happens? Like you're doing all this work, you hand it in, somebody's thinking that they set this bar now of your ability and you have to maintain this, and then you don't have access to it, and then you write and it's just a disappointment. Like that's got to be rough. I mean, it's almost like why are you putting yourself in this situation? You know, I mean, it's tempting, but it's all going to come back to bite you in the butt at some point.
Yeah, I think it's work ethic, right? It's like raising our kids and saying like, this is a really great tool. There's different ways you could use it, and not to rely on it. You know, like, and it's like, you know, your integrity. You know, like just because it's easy and it's available and everyone's, you know, what it feels like Levine was kind of mentioning, like everyone's doing it, everyone's cheating,
everyone's using a calculator.
But like, but at the end of the day, like the proof will be in the pudding. Like, you know, like when you take the test and you went from 90s to like all of a sudden the 70 on an exam because you didn't really learn anything. You know, you just had Gemini help you out.
Maybe
I think that's like something there too.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe we could think about, if it's okay to take a little bit of a twist now, maybe we could think about some of the positives, because I know that it's very easy to think about all of the, and I feel like the negatives that we're talking about is more of like precautionary type stuff of like, you know, something to think about, something to bite on, thinking about as a parent, like where does it all fit in? And obviously, yes, you have to have your radar on. And also, please, for the love of Pete, turn on screen time. Look at what your kids are doing. There are even versions of ChatGPT where there's a student version, and you could kind of enable that and keep an eye on what they're doing and that sort of stuff. So like, you should be taking advantage of those tools. We, you know, on this podcast, I know that like Sarah, Mike, and I have had, you know, some differing perspectives, nothing really argumentative, but I feel we had some different perspectives on sort of like, you know, keeping an eye on or maintaining or kind of when to step in. But I think the three of us all do have this same belief system of like, when it feels time you as a parent have the right to look at the phone, to look at what they're doing, and to check what apps they're using and what they're signing up for and that sort of stuff. And you're doing a disservice to your child if you're not being the grown up in the house. And I think like this is just one of those things that falls under that same spectrum of just sometimes you just have to break in. You're not spying on them. You're not looking at their text messages every night, but they should just know that when you feel that you need to, you pop on and you take a look, and hopefully it's not something you didn't want to see, but that's just kind of how it goes because, you know, it's not all ChatGPT in there, but it's important. But I will say, let's take a moment now, because there are so many positive things with AI. And I honestly, look, it does feel that what I believe the majority of the conversations we're going to have now do really lend towards the text part of things, because we are creators. We do a podcast. It's a parenting podcast, but we do a podcast. We're creators, and we are aware that there's a lot of stealing and borrowing and taking other people's art and that sort of thing. And, you know, look, I feel for people that actually are artists and that do create things and have their work stolen. So that for me bothers me when it's not really credited or people getting credit for that sort of thing or being paid. But when it comes to text, the text aspect of it, I think there are so many positive things that we use, and I'm sure like the four of us will probably even think of things that we don't often use, and even Liam talking about in the car, using ChatGPT, the voice mode, and making lists and sort of like organizing his to-do list and that sort of thing could be very useful. One of the things maybe we can start off this part of the conversation with is something that I heard on a podcast recently. Yes, podcasters listening to podcasts. What a concept. So there was a big conversation on Triple Click, which I thought was really good. One of the hosts, Jason Schreier, wrote a couple books about the video game industry, and he really referred to AI as being incredibly useful, almost in terms of being like a research assistant, in this idea of like keeping track of large amounts of your own stuff and weeding through and finding that thing that you were looking for. It's sort of like, if you have like your room and you're looking for that one little photograph that you stuck in a drawer somewhere, where is it? And when did you take it? And that aspect of it really intrigued me because, for the podcast we do, for Dungeons and Dragons that we do, for all this stuff, sometimes just finding the thing you were looking for, or when did I mention that thing, or when did it come up? That to me is something that I think is a godsend. It's incredibly useful. For just finding the thing you were talking about and when you did and when it appeared.
Can I tell you one of my favorite AI features?
Heck yeah, please do.
Tell us.
So I'm a shill. Not only do I have a ChatGPT subscription, but I happen to have Gemini on my own personal account because years ago, before they had Gemini, I upgraded my storage for Google because I needed it, and I was grandfathered into just getting Gemini access, as part of my subscription.
2 terabytes, baby.
So now I have Gemini on my personal account. But one of my favorite things is like, back to your point about finding that thing, they've integrated Gemini into your email. That way I can ask Gemini, hey, did I ever receive an email from like this company about this thing? And I can't find it, and they'll find it for you, right? It's like, it's the ultimate email searcher. So I want you to go back through all the way through your inbox and find your emails. I love it. It also helps me keep track of my packages and things like that. That is by far one of my favorites. But now it's also done that through your Google Drive. So it'll summarize documents and folders for you and let you search through your Google Drive in a more, Google searchy way, if that makes sense.
So I think the world expects you to be on so much more now, like just like your life, your job, your interactions. It's almost like you feel like you're always on. And it's nice to think that there are resources out there to take some of that burden off of like just keeping track of things.
Yeah.
I like kind of what you're saying. Do you integrate that stuff into any sort of like calendar stuff, or like, or to ask for summaries or things that are coming up with events?
I haven't really integrated it into my calendar yet because I don't think that those parts of my life have kind of like crossed over. I feel like I micromanage my calendar on my iPhone via iOS, the iOS app, versus like through things that are connected to like my AI services. So in that regard, no, but like in other parts of just like, informational stuff, it does organize it really well. So
can you speak to some of the stuff that you mentioned about like talking to it in the car? Like, does it is it in terms of like creating a to-do list? Is it in terms of like sorting through a series of information you don't want to forget? Like what are some of the ways that you found it is actually like really good at that stuff?
So I've used it in the car like that for a variety of purposes. Some might be like, oh, I'll tell it like, I'm going to brain dump on you. I don't want you to repeat anything back to me. I just want you to record. If you hear a long silence, just be like, hey, what's your next thing? And then it'll prompt me to continue talking. So you really have to like pre-prompt it with like, I don't want you to repeat everything back to me or re-say it. Like you can say, record it word for word, don't speak back, just make it as a note. So sometimes I'll do that. But other times, like let's say I made an assignment, but I'm like, oh, I forgot to make a rubric. I'll be like, hey, could you make a rubric based on on these criteria? And I'll edit it when I'm at school to make sure it's like actually good. But like, at least I'll have like something to go off of by the time I get to school. And it'll be based on the criteria that we discussed while I was in the car. And I can even do some like live edits via my voice and it reading it back to me, for example, too.
So the stuff that you do with voice, sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to talk over you. The thing I was just going to ask real fast, like the stuff that you're doing with your voice, and you're setting these like parameters and things, it doesn't forget kind of like the rules that you set when you go from the voice part to going back and retrieving the text part. Like those boundaries and the things that you set are kind of instilled in that part of the prompt.
Yes, that because the voice chat gets saved as its own chat like any other chat, and then everything gets recorded textually when you go back to it. So it does work out that way. And then what were you just saying? Because you reminded me of something else as well.
Oh, like the idea of like when you're driving and you're telling it like a to-do list, or you're asking it to sort information for you, or like I guess what maybe I was alluding to is once you tell it all of these things, what is it able to do with the things that you tell it?
In voice mode in particular? Or
yeah, I guess
general?
like you're giving it a list of things that you don't want it to forget. Cool.
Yeah.
What are some of the applications you can now do with it
but
once
like,
you've
then
now...
what to do?
Yeah. And then Sarah, definitely jumping in with your...
Sure. With that list, I can have it reorganize it, repackage it, put it into a bullet format so I can retrieve it for later. I could make it into a worksheet. So it's all about what you would do normally, but just with or without your voice.
Just do that. I'm thinking for people or children that might need help with organization, and like
Solid.
how you can kind of like, especially like, I'm thinking like Sophia, she's getting older, maybe like she's on the bus or when she's in college, like, like a way to kind of like just like organize her day and to like brain dump, like you said, and then to be like, okay, like a to-do list, or if she was like working on a paper, or just, because like sometimes like I remember thinking like, oh, like I'm writing the paper in my head, but to actually be able to maybe like, as you're commuting, to say like, okay, here's the paper I gotta write on this, the Canterbury Tales, and like, okay, oh, I want to add this, and that was a good idea, and like, you're kind of like brain dumping this thing, and then maybe you could ask it to give you like an outline, or like to format it, to organize my brain dump into like a cohesive.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Like, this is a great way if taught correctly to children or students. Like, it can help them, those who have executive functioning, issues or things of that nature, like to kind of get their thoughts out.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I find, AI is really useful for those executive functioning things, whether it's reorganizing, reiterating, helping you get started on a research, help you getting started with maybe sources, or maybe even like an easier explanation than what your teacher gave you. Maybe your teacher gave you like a reading. You're like, hey, I don't really understand this. Can you just explain it a little easier? That way, when I go back to read it myself, I can kind of pick up on those context clues a little easier. So there's a whole host of different ways for kids and adults to use it to organize, time save, executive functioning. But I do think it's worth for anyone to make sure that they know how or have the skills to do it themselves first. Right? Like, I don't feel guilty when I say, hey, check my email for spelling, grammar, and clarity, because if I needed to, I could take the extra 15 minutes and do it myself. But I know how to do it. I can see if AI corrected it well for me, and then I can send it on its way and save myself 15 minutes. So I think once the kids are at the point where they are able to reflect and self-correct and really be a responsible user, like with any other digital tool, I think it could be really useful for them.
So one of the things that especially my own kids, and just thinking about kind of like their ability to kind of like manage, just a lot of responsibilities and things, and just even like the stuff they forget, or like, sometimes no names of my children, but certain ones of my children might forget to like do a task or leave something somewhere, or not remember a Chromebook charger, things like that. So like, I get sort of what Sarah is saying of this idea of like executive functioning. Like some kids, I mean, look, we all have a certain number of plates that we can balance before they all start crashing down around us. And like some of us can balance more plates and some of us can balance less plates. And I think that like with this, when you think of it as a tool that supports your ability to keep track of information and organize it and sort it and utilize it, I think this is dynamite. I don't think there's anything like this that has ever been around that helps in that way.
Yeah, if I can speak to one specific AI tool called Notebook LM. Now, teachers in our district can actually play around with it with our accounts. We cannot give it to students yet, even though on Google Classroom it says we can give one. It doesn't actually appear to students, but we can use it and show it to students. So Notebook LM is the ability for you to essentially create your own little chat GPT, essentially your own little AI. It's Google, it's Gemini, rather. But here's the big thing, and this is why it's a wonderful, wonderful study tool. Even useful for teachers wanting to reorganize like a summary handout or a mind map, because what happens is, I mentioned before earlier in the podcast that AI is trained on all this like millions and millions and millions and millions of data, right? But this Notebook LM will only use the sources and data that you give it. So it dramatically reduces the chances of hallucinating or giving the wrong information, because it can only use the sources that you give it, whether it's a Google Doc, a PDF, a website, a picture of your notes, other media, whatever it is, it can only reference those things. And so when you ask it questions, like let's say I upload a document about World War I, and I ask it, what's the capital of Florida? It will say, oh, I'm sorry, but according to my documents, I don't have that, because it would be found nowhere in my documents about World War I, right? So you can ask it almost like expert questions on the sources we as teachers gather for our students. Built into this Notebook LM, it will make you a podcast, it will make you a video, a narrated slideshow, it'll make an interactive mind map, it'll make study guides, or you can just use it like a regular chat partner.
But that's cool, because
It's
like different
really
kids
amazing.
learn in like different ways. So depending on,
I really wish our district would allow us to share this with our students, because we could curate the study materials we think they should use, and they could use this as like almost like a study partner that we know they're not using to get bad information or cheat in anything.
That's pretty cool, because like I guess if a kid was making my son's getting older, and I feel like our role has changed a lot now that he's going to 9th grade next year. I feel like our role of Sarah's been here for a while, so she's just like, I know this stuff already, man. But this idea of the role of where we fit in his life in terms of studying is like we're sort of here as reminders, or just to like check in and not really be the ones to like, to quiz him, because like even the stuff that like, we're no longer, things have moved so quickly or changed the way he learns that we're not necessarily like able to differentiate like what he understands, what he doesn't understand. We have to kind of be the ones to manage his time a little bit and maybe check in and just see how he's doing. So like the way that something could pull together information and make study material in a way that maybe would be a time saver to allow a kid to do better, and once they kind of acknowledge like how they learn the best, because like I could see like he sometimes studies one way, it doesn't work, he says a different way, it works better. So like kind of figuring out what works for him and having a tool that does that without going out onto the internet and finding ridiculous stuff seems like a really impressive tool.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
Yeah,
Sarah, do you feel like that would? Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm curious now as looking at it from the perspective of your daughter. She's older.
Yeah, I think that's a big, great tool to like help her teach herself. Because if you can like create something again, like or like regurgitate it in a different way, like then that means like you're learning, or even to use it as a presentation, or just I think this like that's wonderful. Like, also too like for the teacher to have a slideshow that's narrating to you. Again, I'm thinking about different learners, different people. Like how different people learn. Like it just it's good. Sounds good to me.
And that's good because like before Levine would hear a disturbance in the force, he feels good about Sorry, I was just trying to add a Star Wars reference. It made no sense. That was
You did good. You did good.
Oh, thanks.
You did good.
I guess one of the things
that was the Return of the Jedi of references.
Yes. So one of the things I was going to ask you about, I guess maybe this is sort of, maybe this is redundant, but I guess like looking towards the future, looking towards this thing as something that like our kids, maybe you're going to grow into and maybe become something that they get their first jobs, they're getting out there, they're no longer going through school, but they're gainfully employed and not living in our basements. What do you think differentiates somebody from being really good at using AI and getting good information and using it strategically? Yeah. What allows that person to set themselves apart?
So first thing is the information gathering. You first want to be hyper specific with your prompt, like what's the context for why you need this information? What kind of output do you want? A bullet list, a summary, a paragraph? Be as specific as possible as to what you want and how you want it. And then you could also say, please make sure you provide links and cite your sources. That way I know you're getting verifiable information. And at least on ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure it's the same code word on Gemini, but you can say, think hard. It will then force itself to take more time to actually process, see where it's pulling information from, what sources, etc.
Really?
Before it gives you an answer. So instead of giving you an instant answer,
so cool.
You may have to wait a minute or two for it to really process. And again, the more specific that your prompt is in getting what you want, the better. And the way you prompt ChatGPT is very similar in terms of analogy to coding, because when you code something, the computer follows your instructions to a T, right? It has to go step by step by step to make sure that you've executed the code properly the way you wanted it to. And it's the same thing when giving instructions to ChatGPT. A really good analogy is, you all ever see that video where like parents will go to their children and be like, okay, give me step-by-step instructions on how to make a PB&J. But like they miss like a whole bunch of like critical steps.
Right.
And
like they don't take the bread out of the bag, and they just don't take the jar off the
That's the equivalent of what you want to do with ChatGPT. You want to be that specific when giving instructions for like making that PB&J.
But that seems like a skill set that like almost
Absolutely.
like a possible avenue that recruiters someday down the road might say like, you've shown like a really good understanding and you're able to like get the results, or able to like almost like a project manager, you're able to manage the AI to do what we need you to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Just talking with them, like, when we tested this within my own department, we were both given like the same question, same task, and I was able to elicit like a longer, more robust answer just because of the way I prompted it a little differently to the task, knowing, how it would respond in the pitfall. So it's, building some familiarity, as well as, again, using language that the AI will result in a better answer for yourself. And there's a whole bunch of guides out there if you like, how to create a better prompt for X, Y, and Z. You can even ask ChatGPT how to create a better prompt. In fact, sometimes I'll start one chat with ChatGPT and I'll say, make a prompt for me that I can use in a new chat where you're an expert that does X, Y, and Z, that's as specific as possible. Think of all possibilities, and then I'll copy and paste the prompt that it makes me into a new chat. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of ways you can kind of get it to be like almost like a quote unquote expert in what you want it to do.
And I think one thing that I'm just thinking from the perspective of parents at home, or not parents necessarily, people that just have the ability to purchase an airline ticket. One thing that has kind of showed up recently is, all these guides online of like using Gemini with a series of prompts for it to utilize Google Travel and ways to really like harness that kind of power to find like the cheapest airline tickets, deals on how to, get a good flight, or, there are things that are out there that sort of like, the savvy people are getting the good deals, and you kind of want to be the savvy person because you want the good deals. You want to not pay up, arm and a leg for airline tickets. And, the world has changed again. It's no longer like necessarily buying a ticket on a Tuesday, 14 days out. Now it's able to like, understand Google Travel and Google Flights, and using Gemini to really kind of crack away at when the best flights are available. So there's things like that are also very cool. And I think like, in the realm of this podcast, I feel like it's not just about school and kids. There's other things that, getting your family out on vacation is also something that kind of we also kind of think about.
Yeah, well, kind of back to school and kids.
Back to
Gene
school,
actually created a like a spreadsheet of colleges for us to look at for Sophia, with the parameters being that she's looking to get into the medical field, for nursing perhaps, and schools that might have cheer, like a cheer program, and just to kind of help us narrow, so many colleges to pick from, just to help us narrow down schools to potentially look at for her, and kind of get us a jump start on that, because, it's a daunting task. So he helped, with the help of ChatGPT, he was able to kind of like narrow that down.
Yeah, I mean, even I know I started out the conversation with my fears and concerns about ChatGPT, but or AI, that is, but I have used it every day in my life, and I think it's extremely helpful at the same time.
Your whole
I don't want to. I don't.
Crazy.
What?
You said I use it every day of my life. I'm like, how long have you been here?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's extremely helpful, especially like with parental things that I need to do every day. For instance, like, what do I pick for dinner when this one doesn't like chicken nuggets and this one doesn't like spaghetti and meatballs, and and it's actually
big bowl of nothing.
It's actually helped out. Yeah. I tell him, oh, good luck.
See, I might use Liam's AI if he creates one where it's like, what do I do? And Liam's like, nothing. They got nothing.
Nothing.
Thanks,
So yeah,
Liam
I think it's, I don't want to make it sound like I'm poo-pooing the idea of AI, but it's been very helpful in my life.
One thing that I would just say, in general is please utilize screen time. Please utilize Google Family stuff. Please check into what your kids are doing. ChatGPT has a kind of a parental guidance mode now. Kids, Sarah, what's the deal? Kids like to push boundaries. What do we always say?
Yep, kids. The kids' job is to push the boundaries.
That's it. That's their job.
They be doing it.
So if they're pushing boundaries, we have to push back.
They be doing it.
And that's okay. And I think taking the time to show them what is responsible, what's not responsible, your expectations of this stuff, I think it opens up some pathways to using it responsibly. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The more you know.
The more you know.
Thank you.
As a complete B-roll side note, can I make a case or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 hosts start a podcast. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry.
I feel like we can call AI's ChatGPT in the same way we call tissues Kleenex. Right? If I ask you for a Kleenex, you give me a tissue, but Kleenex is a brand, right?
Right.
So I feel like ChatGPT is the Kleenex of AI, where it's like, I'm going to be using ChatGPT.
Like it's saying,
but it
like how Photoshop has become like a verb instead of like the actual tool that it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm gonna go use my lightsaber. Some people might say use your laser sword.
Laser sword.
But use yeah. I'm sorry. But you're right. It's like ketchup. It's just
I'm going to use my legally distinct laser sword.
Yeah, except for catsup.
I happen to like Gemini for different things, and I use ChatGPT for other things.
It's gotten a lot better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Gemini
like Gemini.
is up there.
Gemini's my homie. I like him.
Gemini used to be like a hot pile of burning, but it's gotten a lot better. Like in the past 6 months, I feel like it's gotten really good.
Yeah.
I think it has one of the best image generations on the market.
What was that?
I was saying I think Gemini has one of the best image generators on the market right now.
Yeah, they do. They have a pretty good one. Well, I should show you a funny picture that it made of me.
The unicorn or no?
No, the one, remember the bad haircut?
Yes. Oh my god.
I was like,
it was
like totally different. I was like, who is this random lady?
That's a different episode
that
entirely.
looks vaguely like me.
I did one. I was like, oh my god, it's an imposter. All right.
Should we move on to
Yeah, probably.
One more thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I feel like there's been so many great things to talk about for this episode. Please do us a favor take a moment, think about it. Think about what we've been talking about. Think about the great things that Liam mentioned, and really ask yourself kind of where, how is AI fitting into your life? What are you concerned for your kid? Hit us up. You got the voicemail line, email, and I don't know what social media is going to do for you, but the first two are probably pretty good. We're going to move on right now. We're going to keep Liam along for this wild ride that we call Hey the Parents. We're going to move on to the next part of our podcast, and that, of course, is called Time to Unplug. This is where we take a moment to talk about the things that are going on outside of our children, because sometimes we just need to have something for ourselves or with our spouses. It gives us a chance to decompress, because you'll be a better we if you take care of me. And with that, we're going to jump right in and send it over to Sarah D.
Thank you. So we watch on Netflix The Rip with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Ooh.
And
oh, nice.
They join forces for this action-packed thriller of like a whodunit, and there's drugs and guns. Actually, no, scratch the guns. Is money, drugs. No, scratch all of that.
Wait a minute, that's not
because there's no drugs. I kept thinking there's drugs. It's just action-packed. It's, you got the guns, you got them two besties together on screen again, and I don't know, I was just enjoying it. It was good. My friend was telling me that she heard it was mixed reviews, and I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't hear that before I saw it. It was entertaining. You want to watch it? Watch it.
I think I'm going to put that on as I'm falling to bed tonight. That looks like right up my alley, that movie.
Why haven't they combined the name Matt and Ben yet? Like, why was there a Benifer and why was there a Matt and like how many times did Matt Damon and Ben Affleck been in movies together, and like everyone's like they need to be in movies together? Like, shouldn't their names, from like a bromance standpoint, shouldn't their names be combined? I say yes, they should be.
I think so.
I'm sorry. Let me just drive the podcast into a wall. All right, Mike.
They're celebrity.
Mike Levine, what do you got, baby?
So the gamer that I am, I've never really had a decent monitor, and I still don't have a decent monitor, but I bought a monitor that actually goes up to 100 hertz, and it's crazy how much of a difference a gaming monitor makes when you play games. And yeah, so it was pretty interesting. It was pretty interesting, this purchase that I made, and it's been nice because it's increased the gameplay,
Does it serve donuts? Hertz donuts?
No, I wish it did serve donuts, but it does make the donuts look real and pop up faster.
Is there a brand or something, or like a certain?
Nah, I got a Spectre brand from Amazon. Spectre, it's a cheaper kind of brand, but It does the trick for right now. And I think next Black Friday sales, I'm gonna look into upgrading my computer, just the monitor, not the actual computer, but just the monitor.
Oh, I think I know. Nice I feel like I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like every time you go online, it's like in your face. There's like 47-inch curved monitors, and it's just like I will have.
Oh
the whole,
yeah,
everything's. I almost want to be like Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget and have this just like big. What a reference that is, and have like a big for my evil secret lair. I just want to have a big curved monitor. Why? I don't need it. Don't tell my wife. I want one. All right. So for Liam, I feel like Liam, my friend, I feel like you and I may fall under the same category here, because my thing this week is Fantasy Life I, the girl who stole time. I'm just going to preface this real fast, and Liam's going to describe it. But I will tell you that Liam and I were talking, and I keep laughing because every time we're in this podcast, we talk about video games. This is a distinct moment where we all take a moment, and I feel bad about myself for my video game purchases and not following through with my New Year's resolution from last year. But I will tell you that I realized that what I needed in my life was a video game that made it so that there wasn't that much thinking involved. So if I could combine the world of instant satisfaction, dopamine hit of like a phone game, and like Animal Crossing and a little bit of battling like an MMO, they found a way to combine all those things into a non-subscription based game of the Fantasy Life I, the girl who stole time. Liam, tell me about this game and what you thought of it.
Honestly, it's like one of like the ultimate like relaxation games, but if you also like RPGs at the same time, because you can choose to like boot it up and have a session where you're just like fishing or cutting down trees or farming, or maybe you're having a session where you're progressing the story and you're dungeon delving and you're fighting monsters and whatever else you want to do. So you can take on like one of like I think it's like 14-ish different like what they call lives, which are like your quote unquote classes, and you can switch at any time. There's no obligation to lock into one. In fact, the game encourages you to level all of them up. That way you can kind of progress through the game and make yourself well-rounded. So it's a really fun game to either enjoy a story mode with like combat and exploration, or just a game where you can take your time and really relax and do your thing, a la Animal Crossing, Minecraft, things like that.
And you could play it online with friends. So
yes.
We actually tried it out. So Liam, you played it on a PS5. I played it on a Switch too, and it worked. It was pretty nice. Pretty good. So
also, it has cross save and cross play. So after I was done playing with Height, I switched over my save file to my Switch and then watched some TV while playing on my Switch.
You know what? You bring up a good point, and I think we could definitely bring that last part up into our conversation. Is sometimes you're hanging out with your significant other, and your other it has something on TV, and maybe you're into it, maybe you're just hanging out. Maybe it's a medical drama, and you're not into medical dramas, but you are into spending time together. So what better way to do that than to bust out a little handheld device and, come on, doctor, bring it on, fix that patient, mess up your own life, whatever it is, and you could watch along while playing your Switch 2 or whatever it is, and it's great. All right, well, on that note, we'll take a special moment to thank Liam for joining us on this podcast today. It has been great.
Man.
We've been getting some great insight. I feel like, Liam, you've given us a lot of great things to think about. Our listeners are probably already thinking about ways to balance plates better, organize spreadsheets like Sarah's daughter for colleges, and maybe even having a list so when they get to work, they're like, aha, I feel better. Especially at night when you feel like you have all these thoughts in your head and you got to brain dump and get them out on paper. We're going to take a moment to thank our listeners and supporters for donating to the show. And if you'd like to support this show so we can keep making episodes like this one, we have a link to donate in the show notes. If you don't have the means to do so, we always appreciate it. We tell your friends, your family about the podcast so we can reach more listeners. We can learn from them. They can learn from us in this growing community. If you get a chance, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We can't wait to explore this parenting thing again with you next week on Hey the Parents, because every week it's an honest discussion about raising kids. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge those Chromebooks. That's new for me, for Mike, for Sarah, and for Liam, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, the Parents produced by Mike Levine, Sarah Desiree, and me, Michael Height. I edited and mixed our show. Our intro voice recording was done by the one and only Coltrane. If you like our show, we hope you consider going to the show notes and help support the podcast. Check the show notes for social media, information, email, and other things, and we look forward to seeing you next time.